Hello and welcome. I am Sue Riekels and I am here with my colleague Connie Wilder. Today we're going to be talking about authenticity. What is authenticity? How are we authentic in our relationships? I want to start out by the definition, and that is not false or imitation, real, actual, true to one's own personality, spirit, or character, worthy of acceptance or belief as conforming to or based on fact. So, Connie, I'm curious, in your experience and wisdom, how have you experienced authenticity and how do you feel you show up as when you're your most authentic self?
Hi, Sue. Great question. Great question. It's nice to be with you today. And so I want to start by saying sometimes defining it is what it's not in my life. And so what authenticity is not, it's everyone has not earned the right to hear my story. And in fact, that part I know is true. Like everyone doesn't get to hear every detail of everything. Like that part of authenticity. And so the other part that people do get to hear is that you mentioned the word worthy in your a moment ago you mentioned the word worthy. And so that word worthy is connected to our authenticity. And we are worthy because we're here. So I am worthy, you are worthy, and we've discovered this great friendship, right? And so we can talk about that as well as all the authenticity that comes in, that's involved in our friendship. And yet authenticity is that ability to show up as ourselves without this hidden facade and armoring up, as Brene Brown puts it. And so that we're authentic. We have the ability to be ourselves, to be true to ourselves and true to our commitments. Is my favorite definition of authenticity.
I love it, Connie. And thank you for sharing that, especially not oversharing. Who gets to hear what we want to know, or want them to know? And I guess that's my reflection is, can we be authentic if we really don't know who we are?
Mm.
And I'm going to say no. Because if you really know who you are, you know when to share, when not to share, how much to share, how much not to share. And you're showing up authentically as you. There's no apology needed for who you are. Like you said, that worthy piece. And we have to know who we are. And I will say, I didn't know who I was for a lot of years. For sure not in my teens. My 20s, I was trying to figure out, who am I? Who do I want to be in this world now that I'm not at home or with my parents? And so I think there's this piece too of, I'm curious, as we get more experience under us, does it allow us to be more authentic because we truly know who we are a little bit? Any thoughts on that, Connie?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I want to say that authenticity is one of these pieces, one of these elements that tell me I've got more work to do. One of my friends, quote unquote, asked me, "What secrets do you have?" or something about secrets, and I was like, in my mind, I was like, "Well, I'm not going to tell them to you." And so it's what I said earlier about telling our life story. I feel like I've got a lot to learn about my own life story, and then also I'm of an age where the wisdom matters. And so I believe what you said is correct. So we've got to know ourselves. We've got that ability to tell our own stories. And I've got some work to do on that. I've got, and maybe we all do. Maybe we all have some work to do. In fact, that work is what keeps us, well, the work keeps us invested in the moment for sure, and that work is part of my internal work that I've got some awareness around that internal work to do. How about you, Sue?
Well, funny that you say that. Are we ever done with our own work?
Good
I would say
question.
no. I would say until this human suit of ours passes on, our work is not done, whether it's in confidence, authenticity, noticing and working on ourselves. There's different layers, and it takes intentional work to be fully present with people we care about and people we're in relationship with. Being able to know ourselves well enough to sit with discomfort, to sit with excitement, to sit with all those different emotions. I don't think that work is ever done, is my opinion. And so thank you for being authentic in the fact that you're still working on it. And I think hopefully we all are still working on it, is what I want to say. Because it's an ongoing process. Do we learn, hopefully, over the years? Yeah. But does it ever end? I would hope not.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully it doesn't end, right? And so, yes, the ability, like I used to think of my sister-in-law who passed just over a year ago, and I used to think of it like game over on her. Like I think of her and I think of her game is over. Like, wow, Connie, get with it. Get hip to it because it's chasing down your tail pretty darn fast is what I think sometimes, even though I want to live well into my 90s, possibly that 100 mark, but I want to live well into my 90s. And I want to live well. Hear me well on that. I want to live well into my 90s. And so what do I need to do today to do that? And I think you're right, Sue. I think the work is never done. And even those words game over are erroneous. They're not the right words to use because from my thought, from my perspective, I believe that we go on to something bigger, that God will dream a bigger dream for our lives than we could ever dream for ourselves. And I believe in a very big God, whatever you call God, whether it's the universe, whatever you call God, I believe in something very, very big and that omnipotent piece. And there is more to learn on all fronts. There's so much more to learn, Sue.
And that's where authenticity, I think, is being true to our own words. And I come back to, yes, there's that, I love that you brought, the length of our life. And if people can trust that what we are saying is true, including our yeses and our nos, is that not a form of authenticity? Because if we say yes and we really wanted to say no, is that very authentic? And I feel like we have been programmed or trained to please others, or at least believe we're pleasing others, and not wanting to disappoint anyone. And in that, have compromised authenticity. And we're not being true here. And so I hold that challenge for myself is there's times I might disappoint someone else, and if I can't be authentic to myself, I certainly can't be authentic to them.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Well, many years ago, many years ago, I spoke at Stanford and I was the sixth person on the panel speaking. It was an infertility conference put on by Resolve. And I was the last person. So here I am speaking. I'm on the panel with a bunch of lawyers and doctors and me. I had just started my coaching practice. However, I know the value of introducing ourselves and I'm all about serving that audience. So I give my introduction. And it's not long because I'm visual and I'm very succinct, if you will, most of the time. Yet this now we're finished. Now fast forward, we're done with the our presentation, and one of the persons who goes first comes down to talk to me. She said, "Oh, I didn't know we were giving our A+ introductions." And I said, "Oh, that's funny." I said, "Did you think this audience wanted your C+?" Of course, I didn't say that yet. I think it's a prime example of authenticity versus not authentic. And I was being authentic, and I took 30 seconds of their time to introduce myself. And I'm not going to apologize for that ever. And I didn't apologize for it that day either, because that audience there is what I know for sure is that they're not going to get that time back. And so that example is me being authentic. and resilient and all kinds of things as well. Serving that audience is what I wanted to do. Yet that example is an example of authenticity because I'm being me. And it had nothing to do with the other people on my panel, on that panel.
Correct. And it could evoke something in her feeling a little insecure or whatever that happens. And that's a great example that we can't control, nor will we ever know what was going on for her. And we can control how we are and how we show up. And I don't think we can really be authentic if we're not our true self. Like, we're each created with these amazing strengths and gifts. If only we could look at each other that way and see the beauty that everyone has been created with, versus this competition of like, oh, I wish I could be like that, or oh, I wish I could say whatever. No, we all bring beauty and uniqueness to every relationship. And to me, that is the authentic piece that is so rich and beautiful. I know as I have been mentoring some younger entrepreneurs right now, it is fun to hear them talk and dream. And I've learned so much from their richness. It's not about the wisdom I'm giving them. It's the wisdom that is shared, and it's just beautiful to see them blossoming and going into who they were designed to be, and that alignment. I think when we know who we are and where we're headed, whether it's in our personal life or our work life, wow, where we're supposed to be, why we're here, our purpose, our vision is authentic then to us, and the rest seems to often fall into place. Versus, well, I can't make money doing this, so I'm not going to choose that career. Who says you can't make money? Who says if that's really your passion? I've seen people take some things that I would be like, and they hit it out of the park because they were so passionate about it. And so that piece of authenticity, I still come back to that soul, or like who we were designed to be. And I know you alluded to God having a bigger dream for us than we could imagine. What if we could imagine? What if we started to lean into that dream and truly embrace it as our authentic self, and see that authenticity in others as well, as they are tapping into their own?
Yeah. Sue, you're spot on. And so what questions do you have? What questions do I have for you is one of my things right now. I'm trying to think. And so what question do I have for Sue? And that is, what do you do to be more authentic? What's your, and maybe there's not a checklist. Maybe there's not even, how does one become more authentic?
For me, it is critical that I take care of myself. I can't be my best self if I haven't done my own self-care and my own self-work. And so exercise has become a key for that. Being in nature is another one. Meditation, prayer, that form, those three are key to my everyday well-being. And when one of those goes, I can feel it. So that's my own personal way of being my best version. When I'm at my best, then I feel like I can be more authentic. I'm not exhausted. I'm not worn thin. I'm not all those things that deplete me. I've been filling my own bucket, so I'm not looking for anyone else to fill it. But it's an ongoing process. And you can ask my family, I don't do it well most of the time, or a lot of the time. The first thing that goes when life gets busy is my own self-care. And I'm working on that. I'm continually working on that and making that a priority. But do I get it right all the time? Absolutely not. So in return, Connie, how do you find yourself showing up as your most authentic self? Is there anything that has been helpful to you over the years?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's thank you, Sue. And so, what do? I also meditate, the prayer. One of the things that's new for me right now And I've been living in this home for 19 years. Well, 18 and a half years is how long I've been living here. And so the exercise piece is new for me. I used to live in San Francisco and I walked everywhere, including I lived on the fourth floor of a walk up. So I got lots of exercise inherent to that, just inherent to where I lived. And that was awesome. And it was excellent. And I was younger then. And so now I've started exercising, and that's been a big and positive piece for me. And then also the meditation and the morning routine, having a morning routine also helps me be my best self. And that you said that, Sue, and that is critical. Like how do we decide who our best self is, right? And so best can be a tricky word as well. And then you also said that no one else can fill my bucket. And I agree with that. We have to have our own bucket filled. That's why it's so important to put our own mask on, our own oxygen mask on first, because without that, our ability to help anybody else around us is compromised significantly. So I love that self-care piece. And I've also had this flashlight of grace that I've been shining on my life, coming through this lens of grace, because it helps me allow other people to show up as they are, right? I mean, all they can do is show up who they are. And I want to have grace for them. I want to have grace. That's who I am, and who I want to be in the world is to a person that has grace for others.
And thank you for sharing that, Connie, of what matters to you and what helps you the most. And what you just said at the end, I want to circle back to, because I was just listening to someone speak this week, and the analogy they gave was, what we put out is what we mirror to ourselves. And so if we aren't grace-filled, or we aren't seeing others with the beauty, we're not going to be able to see ourselves with the same grace and the same beauty. And I think that is a great reminder, is how are we showing up in the world, and is it, can we reflect that back to ourselves? It's that mirror piece where if we're smiling and we're mirroring that out into the world, it's going to often be mirrored back to us. And I think that's not that we're doing it for that reason, it happens automatically. And unlike any other time, now is the time to continue to shine that beauty out and receive it. Coming together as in these meaningful relationships, sometimes we disagree, and that's okay. Sometimes we see it differently, and that's okay. We're being authentically ourselves. We don't have to disparage anyone else. We have just different ideas. Have some healthy conversations around topics that you know nothing about. I think that is the piece of learning and growing and continually expanding. And I know, Connie, I've so appreciated our conversations, because there's times you and I might see it differently, but it's that richness as we talk about it that comes together, and we can see it from each other's viewpoints. We don't have to always agree, and we learn. And so I thank you for that in these conversations, and I thank you for your wisdom today and how you see authenticity. Anything you want to share?
You're spot on, Sue, and thank you for that. And the only other thing I want to say is that the energy is contagious, which may be the reason, or part of the reason, why we are friends in the first place, and even how we got here at this, as we wrap up, as we are on episode 15, I think it is, of season 1. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Connie, and thank you for being here with us. We're going to invite you to have the courage to be your true self. Be authentic in your relationships. Notice what makes you. Shine your light out.